Hi folks, and thank you so much for joining me again this week on an episode of Not Fit. We're out at the Battery in St. John's, Newfoundland, which is one of the oldest parts of St. John's. I'm here just to chill out. I guess the basic theme of today will be what's it like entering recovery. One thing I know for myself is that it's a very scary proposition when you go from using to deciding, no, I don't want to use today. And we always talk about just for today, right? In the spirit of not making that initial step into recovery too complicated or too overwhelming, one just has to keep this in mind. Don't use no matter what. I think the first thing I'm going to do is go up and have a look at a small lilac bush. It's about 7 feet tall, just in front of one of my neighbors on Lamarchant. So the very first thing I'm going to do is go in and start taking out some of the suckers. And the suckers are just what they say. They suck the life out of the tree. And I'm going to take the pruning shears to it. I think the sort of parallel in recovery with that particular task is that I want to make my entry into recovery as uncomplicated as possible. So I'm going to take that beautiful little lilac tree, which is full of all kinds of unnecessary branches and clutter, and I'm going to beautify it and decomplicate what it looks like. Remember, all we're trying to do, like in recovery, is make the path to recovery and to being clean each day as unbusy and uncomplicated as possible. Really, what I want to do is just wake up each day and say to myself, I'm not going to use today. And then use every tool I have at my disposal to make sure that happens. And that involves a lot of work on people, places, and things. You know, I can't hang out with people who use. I can't hang out in places where I'm likely to use. And I can't have things around that go against that prospect of not using. So that is the decluttering that happens. There's some pretty significant decluttering that happens later in recovery. And if you choose a 12-step program, which is what I'm doing, to get better, then there is significant work. Oh my God, step 4. Step 4. Made a fearless and moral inventory of ourselves. I mean, every life has junk and garbage, and junk and garbage comes at everyone throughout life. Whether you're maintaining it and maintaining an orderly life throughout that life cycle, or you're just waiting for times like this, where a lot of it has attached to the tree and grown from the tree, and now you got a big mess to clean up. Well, you know, that's what happens in early recovery. You just got a lot of mess. But don't focus on the mess. Keep your eye on the prize, as they say. I don't want to use no matter what, because if I use, my brain resets itself back to where the sick brain is. If I don't use, each day that I don't use, my brain becomes freer and clearer. And let's face it, the brain is what controls addiction. Another branch there with a bunch of dead stuff on it, or what I think is dead at this point. Regardless of the fact, I just want it gone because it's adding to that busyness at the base of the tree. You can really see the tree starting to come along now. And the much more mature branches are being revealed, but I'm going to leave it alone. I've taken out a good chunk of it, and the tree has opened up. There's a lot of air inside. The second thing I'm going to do is talk to my friend Catherine Martin, who's in Iqaluit. Catherine's been clean now and sober for 28 years. That's a long time. And the message there is for anyone who's struggling to enter recovery that even in your worst form, on your face and at the bottom, there is hope. We can never underscore the importance of reaching out enough, especially in early recovery. But in fact, you know, you can be clean for years and you still have to reach out daily, because you can't walk it alone. It cannot be done alone. I sometimes hear people talk about doing it alone, and I'm skeptical, for sure, at the best of times. How long, Catherine, have you been clean?
Just celebrated 28 years.
Wow. And the interesting thing for anyone who's watching this is to look at you and how crispy clean you look. You obviously don't use drugs. You don't drink either, right? You don't smoke pot.
I gave up smoking cigarettes too 27 years ago.
It's pretty impossible for someone to go from active addiction to not using without the help of other people. For anyone coming out of addiction, like I am, having that feeling that you're talking to someone who's not judging you.
Absolutely.
When you're someone who's on the fence and you want to commit to recovery, but you are absolutely fearful of that first day, that first hour, those first few hours, how does one stick their toes into that water?
You know, clearly, I mean, I can't speak for other people. I can only talk about my own experience. And for me, you know, the pain of staying the same, right? The sick and tired of being sick and tired became so overwhelming. You know, that death, and I mean like suicide, was, you know, had become like a friend. You know, I wasn't afraid of it at all. What I was afraid of is continuing to survive in the, you know, in the hell that I had created. You know, at the end, when I made a decision to get help, you know, there were no, I wasn't in denial. There was no illusion. There was no certainly all the glamour, you know, of using, you know, that we go through, the glamour of it, right? You know, the rock star, you know, all of that, you know, had long worn off.
Yeah.
But the pain of the day in, and, you know, like we have a line in our you know, recovery circles, you know, the getting and the using and the finding ways and means to get more. You know, the drudgery of that, right, was so had become so heavy that even suicide seemed better.
My personal experience is not courting suicide, because I've never been suicidal, and I kind of thank God, because now I think it is because I love life more than the prospect of death. But I am extremely intimate with walking daily with the reality that I am on death's door each day that I use, because I've used for a very long time, and I've used, you know, some hard friggin' drugs. But yes, I am really familiar with going to sleep and saying to myself, I don't care if I wake up.
And that's a form of suicide. That's just a slower suicide.
I guess so, yeah.
And at that point, it's death of the spirit.
Yeah, there's a lot of people watching this who have brothers and sisters and friends and family and maybe parents who are using, and they see that and they don't know what to do.
It's a fine line helping an addict in active addiction, who's in active addiction. And the reason for that is because addicts are just looking for an enabler, you know?
Oh, yes.
And, you know, the disease, the insanity of, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, if you're on the outside looking at another person who is in active addiction, please don't make any mistake about it. It is insanity. And so the mental, like the specific type of mental illness that addiction lives in is denial and victimization. And if it comes right down to it, and if you force my hand, I'll make myself a victim at your hands, right? Yeah. So at an enabler's hands. And so I need somebody to enable that behavior. So helping addicts becomes extremely difficult, especially for family members, because you know, there's always some kind of inherent guilt associated with that help. At the end of the day, though, there are things that can be done. And you know what, like providing an avenue of recovery is always a help, but it has to be done at a distance. You know, you can't get messy with the addict, because unless they're willing to help themselves, you can't walk the walk. But what I can do is I can be a resource, you know, so they know. I break my anonymity with all my relatives, right? Listen, I'm in recovery. I've been in recovery for, you know, 28 years. I've been continuously clean and sober for over 28 years. I'm familiar with the recovery process. I work in recoveries. I have worked in recovery circles. I've worked with marginalized people in the community. People know my name. If you need help, let me know. I can get you the help that you need. I can hook you up. I have the connections.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to make those phone calls for you, but I'll give you the numbers.
Right. Yeah, because making it easy is in fact enabling, right? Because the bottom line is that entering recovery and being in recovery, especially early acute recovery, is not a walk in the park. For my own self, I just got to lunge into it. I've got to go to that first meeting. I've got to reach out to someone like you. I've got to do something that is driven by my own desire not to be in that painful spot anymore.
I heard it in detox, and somebody said, if you put 10% of the effort into recovery that you used in finding ways and means to get drugs, you'll get recovery. Once I made the effort, people were on the other side.
Yeah.
People were on the other side, and doors started to open. You know, people like my first meeting, people gave me their phone numbers. Mm-hmm. I had to call those numbers, but people, you know what, helped. Yeah.
I mean, I think,
you know, and I haven't looked back at that since. Darrell, I was 31 when I went to detox, right? I quit 8 million times.
We all go through that phase where we just want to be rescued. We want someone to pick us up and make that pain go away. But the realization that you do come to when you're ready to enter recovery is that it's by and large your responsibility.
I mean, I make that decision to stay clean every day. The flavor of freedom continues to outweigh the happiness that I think incorrectly, that I incorrectly think that substance on the table is going to bring to me. And you know, that whole message of getting joy or happiness or getting a feeling from the outside to change the inside is that's at the center of the disease. I know that's how it feels because I have felt that. So hang on, pain ends.